South Korea's parliament convening today for a hearing on the national football team's early exit in the FIFA World Cup. More than a dozen witnesses summoned include key individuals behind the Korean Football Association. Now, the proceedings will look into the controversy surrounding the football body and the appointment of former head coach Hong Myung-bo. The KFA had been under mounting criticism for allowing its former president Chung Mong-gyu serve multiple terms as chair. It's alleged this allowed Chung to recruit the head coach, without undergoing any due process. Both Hong and Chung resigned following the team's exit from the FIFA World Cup. The investigation was triggered by South Korea's men's national football team failing to advance into the knockout stage in the global tournament. The team won one game and lost two others within its group. The defeat drew public condemnation with death threats sent to the former head coach. President Lee Jae-myung also weighed in, criticizing what he called favoritism and cronyism in Hong's appointment. So for more, we're joined by football writer Steve Han. Steve, thank you so much for joining you. So why exactly do you think lawmakers are having this hearing? Now, the key question I have is, would this still be happening if South Korea had actually made it to the knockout phase?
Likely not, but the result at the World Cup is what put this problem in front of everybody in Korea, if I can put it that way. So it was poor performance on the pitch for one, but Korea exiting the World Cup early is not exactly why there's now a parliamentary hearing about this whole scandal. You know, there are two major issues that led to this mess, and number one is the governance surrounding Korean football is allegedly corrupt, not incompetent, but allegedly corrupt. We all know that you cannot punish people for not being good at their jobs despite being hired, but you can if they're corrupt. So at least in theory, that's what this parliament hearing is supposed to figure out, whether these decision makers in Korean football are just bad at their jobs or if they're bad people altogether. That's number one. And number two, partly because of these problems off the pitch, the general consensus in Korea now is that these issues have contributed to the poor quality of football that we're seeing on the pitch by the Korean national team, which is by far the most popular sports team in the country by some distance. And the belief amongst the majority of the fan base is that when making major decisions within Korean football, like who coaches the national team, who hires the coach for the national team, the belief is that the corruption off the pitch has led to the KFA making decisions for the benefit of certain individuals rather than for the good of Korean football. So this is where we are now, a parliamentary hearing that's being held as we speak to talk about all this.
Yeah, Steve, you talked about that. It's not really about the performance, but yeah, I mean, South Korea has suffered disappointing World Cup campaigns before. Why does this exit seems to have triggered a much stronger public as well as political reaction than previous failures?
Yeah, I mean, what ultimately put this whole debacle beyond the realm of football in front of the general public was, when South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, after, Korea got eliminated from the World Cup, posted on X that, results like this, it becomes predictable when you hire someone without any ability to be a leader. Mind you, though, Lee Jae-myung is the same South Korean president who only 2 weeks prior to posting that, that message on X, when Korea beat Czechia 2-1 in their first World Cup match, just 2 weeks before that, he posted, "I give my big round of applause to the head coach Hong Myung-bo and his coaching staff for uniting our country." So really, whether or not, whether we can really expect that this parliamentary hearing can make substantial changes that the Korean people want to see, I'm really not sure, to be honest. We're just gonna have to wait and see. So it's gonna take some time. I believe the presidential election for the KFA cannot be held until next year. So this is something that's gonna take some time, but we'll see how today goes.
Okay, so Steve, no players have been summoned as witnesses. I mean, they were, but there was a backlash, so they're not going to be called. But the more important question I have right now is, don't lawmakers, doesn't the parliament have some responsibility as well? Because there was a similar hearing in 2024, over the appointment as well and hiring of coaches, Jurgen Klinsmann, among the issues that were discussed. So essentially, it seems as though they've made the same mistake twice.
Yeah, probably more than twice if you look at like the grand scheme of this whole situation. But to be honest, one thing that I guess a lot of fans or the Korean people can see and hope for at this point that's a little different this time around is that the biggest talking point in Korea with this scandal right now is that the government, recently convinced Park Ji-sung, one of the South Korean football legends, to lead this new organization named K-Football Innovation Committee. This is a group that was recently formed to advise and provide support to the KFA to kind of reform itself. And the big thing that Park Ji-sung is emphasizing is the election process that ultimately elects the KFA president. And his ambition is to increase the number of voters, which used to be only a couple hundred voters when former president now, Chung Mong-gyu, was reelected for the fourth time last year. And it was it was a few hundred voters at the time, but what Park Ji-sung wants to do now, leading this organization, is to increase the number of voters to over 10,000 voters, because that'll give more people to let their voices be heard, I guess. But personally, I'm not sure if that's really the solution, or at least, it's going to take some time for us to know, because you can give votes to elect the federation's president to millions of people, really. But even then, once the president is elected, the people who essentially make the big decisions within the organizations are the executives and the directors within KFA. So, for example, when just about every average Korean person or football fans opposed the appointment of head coach Hong Myung-bo in 2024, 21 of 23 executives at the KFA signed off on the deal to put him in the job. So clearly, it's not just the KFA president who doesn't have the sensibility or any kind of connection to what the fans and the people truly want. So, will increasing the number of voters, like what they're trying to do now, to elect a different KFA president, really be the problem solver? I mean, it can be a starter that could start creating some of these changes, but it can easily fail to serve that purpose as well. So let's wait and see.
Sure, Steve. So before we let you go, who do you think ultimately bears the greatest responsibility for this failure? I mean, is there a risk that one individual, perhaps Hong Myung-bo, become a scapegoat for much deeper structural issues?
Yeah. It's, Hong Myung-bo was the face of the issue because he was asked to be the face of it, to be honest. And the vast majority of the criticism is really on the KFA as an organization, I feel like. The suspicion is that the KFA has been an organization that's been serving self-interests of certain individuals, who've already wielded power in Korean football. For example, the allegation is that the KFA purposely appointed a Korean head coach for the national team out of favoritism. And some even accuse the people with power at the KFA of insisting on hiring a Korean coach to try and drive up the market value of domestic coaches in Korea if the national team achieved, some level of success at the World Cup. So it'll be up to the KFA to explain how that's not the case, really, in this hearing. But I'm already hearing in this hearing about how these people want to talk about football tactics, why the struggles on the pitch. So it's already kind of going a weird kind of direction. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, those are the kind of conversations that the average Korean people are expecting to hear from this hearing.
Steve, I'm going to be naughty and slip in one final one very quickly. Is South Korea in danger of crossing that line, that FIFA line between government control and government scrutiny, very quickly?
I think so. I think they're walking that fine line right now, and it'll really be up to FIFA's interpretation, to be honest. But yeah, I would say they're taking that risk. They're gonna try not to cross that line like you mentioned, but it's looking a little iffy because any kind of government involvement can be investigated by FIFA.
Understood. Steve, good talking to you on the show this morning. Thanks so much for your time. Football writer Steve Han talking to us live there from Los Angeles.